Hello my friends, the video is finally here. When I say the video, I'm talking about, of course, Bife's Winnower video. He mentioned a while back that he was going to make it, and I've been waiting patiently ever since. And yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch it with you guys, give you my thoughts on it. Before I do, I want to thank Bife again for, dude, this guy has been incredible, like mentioning me in multiple of his videos. The kindness, dude, you need to understand, I woke up and we've hit 5K subscribers, and the comments people are leaving, they're so nice. I'm in a state of discombobulation, but the good kind. So I want to thank Bife for that. If you see this, Bife, thank you so much. You're an absolute legend. Also, don't think I missed what you guys were saying on this video. I don't know if I got all of you, but if we go to the cheeky Alloy did indeed help me out with the video. He went through my script and he also sent me some pictures that he had that I used. So thank you so much for that, Alloy. And then we've got people here mentioning me, which is wonderful. It's weird, right? It's amazing, but it's weird. I never thought in a million years that this would ever happen. So, you know, I'm not trying to flex or anything like that. I'm just saying, if, you know, you're one of these people who left a comment like that, thank you so much for that as well. I really appreciate you guys. And to all of you who are watching this, who have recently subscribed, thank you as well. I hope that, yeah, I hope we can continue to figure out great things about the lore and have a great time. But anyway, this is the plan. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be showing you the whole video. If you want to watch the whole video, if you haven't already, watch this for yourself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to watch this now, and then in editing, I'm going to make it so that you only see the relevant parts. So the parts where I'm actually speaking or that I'm actually giving my thoughts on it. You're not going to have like 15 minutes where I'm just, you know, watching it and then I'm not, you know, saying anything. That's what we're going to do. And yeah, with all that being said, let's get into it. I'm so excited.
Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. I don't exactly know how to start this video. It's one of the more complicated and important topics that I've ever written about, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that this video is going to touch on a ton of lore from across all of Destiny's 10 years, and there's also the note that Destiny's story has been written across 10 years by various people, with various intentions and with various narrative changes within the universe, its characters, or its concepts. That makes talking about this topic one hell of a rabbit hole, and the comprehension of a topic like this is something that I needed a bit more help with than just my typical memory, and so I needed to do some more research. That said, there was another content creator who beat me to it, and I'm glad they did. They made a rather incredible breakdown regarding this particular topic, the Winnower and the Unveiling lore book, and they deserve a lot of praise for this. That creator is someone I've mentioned a few times, and their name is Venextron.
Let's go, dude. Let's go. I'm freaking out, bro. Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry. No, it's sorry. I'm sorry. That's great, dude.
I'm gonna link their video on the subject below,
Oh
because I think it's really important if you want to understand this. Some of the ideas I am discussing here today are ideas that I can only really discuss with the degree of clarity.
Sorry. I'm almost afraid I'm not going to be able to, like, you know, properly talk about this because I'm so excited that I'm like a bit out of it. But I'm going to do my best.
That I have now because of Venextron's work. It would be weird for me to not talk about his video when he is basically also touching on the exact same topics that I'm touching on here. So yeah, it may be an over 1 hour long video from Venextron, but trust me, it breaks down all of the crucial details about the lore and the nature of its creation. Whilst a lot of what I'm discussing today is retreading that same ground, I would encourage you to head to Venextron's video and give it a watch as well.
Kind.
I found it really useful, It improved my clarity on the topic,
Oh.
gave me some interesting ideas, and taught me things I didn't know. So
I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I really don't. I don't know. It's actually a lot, dude. Um, I guess what I'll say is that the reason why I made that video was mainly due to the fact that, I don't know, it's, I think the reality of the situation, and he's kind of touched on it already, and, you know, as the last few months have gone by and I've done more thinking about it, and I said this on a stream recently, I think that Destiny and its story has had a lot of eras. And, you know, people talk about the state and cut, you know, the original story of Destiny 1. You have Destiny 1 to Rise of Iron, you have Destiny 2, and you have Forsaken, and, you know, in each of these eras, you have different members of the narrative team coming and going, different people making the decisions, different people with different visions of what they think either was the intended original direction of the franchise, narrative-wise, or what they believe will provide the best experience for the player. And speaking of that, I am really of the opinion, and I would say that this is a fact, that Shadowkeep represented a reboot and a bit of a shakeup of Destiny's narrative. And I think the direction moving forward from that has definitely been a bit of a different one. And I think that in a lot of ways, especially with Witch Queen, it's a new era of the lore. And I think the tricky thing that can happen with that is that when a decision is made that is, you know, new and that is going in a new direction, it also needs to fit into a pre-existing, like a 10-year old universe. And so what can happen is that you need to try and figure out, is this always what was intended, or is this something separate? That's really what it comes down to. And so I know I'm kind of rambling, but the point of that video was really just to show that regardless of what we get in the final shape, and regardless of what the quote-unquote answers are, I am very confident that I can piece together what the original answer would have been from the previous eras of Destiny, going all the way as far back as before Destiny 1. And I think the reason why I made it is because we all have different opinions on things, we can disagree on things, we can agree on things, but I think the one argument that I really, really wanted to push against is that if there was a retcon, saying that there was never a retcon and that it was always intended like that. And that's why I made the video. And I also want to say real quick, I know, again, I'm rambling, but Bife's being really kind here, and he's giving me a lot of praise. This wasn't all me. I really want to be clear about that. This wasn't all me. And as much as I did a lot of digging myself, and I'm the guy that, you know, formed the words and kind of presented the points, I've learned a lot from others as well. And I gotta give credit to, you know, my friend Marzier, who understands I would say the original concepts of Destiny better than I do. I've had great conversations with a Promethean Archival Mind. I've had conversations with the guys, you know, you people, you know, on my channel, in my server. And even again, somebody in the comments, Alloy, who is a prominent member of my community, you know, we've shared thoughts as well. So this isn't all me. It's not like I'm some, you know, lore expert who knows better than everybody else, and I'm here to like educate you. It's just a coming together and a collaboration of perspectives, and this was, I guess, the refined version of all of that. And I'm just the messenger. I guess it's a way of me saying that. Anyway, we'll continue. Lol.
A few years ago, I was a little mad at some of you guys because I kept seeing comments in my videos stating that you were all falling asleep to them.
Dude, I keep getting that as well. I've had a guy say twice that he wishes he could fall asleep to a he wishes that he could sleep on a cloud made out of my voice. I've had people say that my voice is like ASMR. I've had multiple people say that they could doze off to my voice. Okay? I'm just gonna take it as a compliment. I just gotta take it as a compliment, man. But just make sure that you keep the video playing when you do fall asleep, because yeah.
But what's actually said inside this lore book? Well, it doesn't just feature the Winnower, it also features his counterpart, the Gardener. The two of them existed in a garden long before time. In that garden, they played a game. The two of them, Winnower, it also features his counterpart.
He just referred to the Winnower as a he. Bro, dude. Oh, man. I just want to say, if I'm completely wrong about that, I apologize. But, like, I am the one where that kind of comes from. I don't think Archival agrees with that. Miser might, but for the most part, I've been the main proponent of the Winnower having, like, the assigned, like, male personification specifically. So, that is purely, like, it is never anywhere specifically stated that the Winnower has a he. The opposite, though, is true for the Gardener, where it is specifically stated where she is like a she, right? So I just want to be clear. Bife has said that the Winnower is a he. That is purely based off of my interpretations, and I'm pretty sure I'm the one that started calling the Winnower a he. So if this is all wrong, that's on me, for sure.
Normally, if we take a really simple idea in the lore like the Fall of Torobatl, it's clear that a writer has been given or come up with a plot thread that leads succinctly from question to answer or from start to finish. These questions about the Winnower and Unveiling are not like that. They stretch across the whole 10-year saga. They have had multiple writers who've approached them and addressed the questions and potentially changed the direction of the subject multiple times.
So I want to just say as well, a reason why I actually really respect Bife for making this video is because Bife... So like Bife and I, we both make lore videos, right? But we both fulfill a different role in the community. Bife, for a lot of people, is their source of information. They rely on him to understand what's actually going on. And I think it's, fair to assume that many people take what he says as gospel, right? So because of that, Bife has a lot of weight on his shoulders to not mislead people. And I can imagine that would result in a lot of pressure when, having to try and talk about a topic that isn't necessarily clear. And so... yeah, no, the fact that he is actually willing to go out... because here's the thing, there's a chance that he makes this video and it's completely false, And I don't know if people would, jump on him or not, but something that he has to think about. And so him willing to make this video, respect it. I do.
Welcome to the problem that all Bible scholars have trying to figure out what may or may not have happened, and lining that up to actual historical events. Unveiling is a parable. It is effectively a religious text, and how much of that is propaganda, how much of that is myth, how much of that is fact is deeply unclear in the nature of the text. Players believed it, brackets unveiling, to be 100% fact. There was a literal garden, there was a literal gardener, there was a literal Winnower. And now it's starting to become clear that those may not actually be just concrete ideas, but metaphors or things that are far less concrete and clear. And as we get closer into the final shape, more answers on that will start coming up. And the final shape, of course, will have a lot of answers about the nature of those conflicts.
So I make a really big deal about the second half of that quote. People who argue that unveiling is purely a metaphor, this is what they use. They're like, oh, okay, well, the narrative team straight up said it, man. There you go. But they leave out the second half, which says that we will get answers on unveiling in the final shape. So I'm just going to ask you, from everything we've seen of the final shape, if this quote holds true and we're actually going to learn about unveiling, that is pretty interesting. I think that leans more in my direction of thinking than in the opposite.
And after all, what is a parable? A story which is told to us with the intent of conveying a message rather than a completely accurate historical revision of an event that happened. The bedrock message of the truth within it is what's important, not the specifics or the minutiae.
I mean, that's true. I touched on this in my video, and my focus on the parable part wasn't actually on what was being said, but on who was speaking it. Regardless of if something is a parable or not, the real thing that matters, I think, in this question is the speaker. If the winnower is the one who is giving us unveiling, then that just by the winnower existing and the gardener existing, that actually answers a lot of questions that unveiling prevents. I can't speak, I'm so excited. It answers by itself a lot of the questions that unveiling presents. So that's why my main focus was actually on who it was coming from and confirming the two entities' existence. And then, yeah, everything else kind of just...
Is the winnower the witness? After looking through a bunch of evidence, I think I can pretty safely say that the answer is no.
Let's go, dude.
Now, let me go ahead and talk about one major counterpoint at the very beginning, which I'm sort of already mentioned, which was simply the fact that when we initially touched the artifact at the end of Shadowkeep, it was probably the witness that spoke to us. But then afterwards, the artifact seemed to reveal unveiling, and that supposedly is from the perspective of the winnower, which is not necessarily the witness. But it's the same artifact, and we recovered both from a Black Fleet vessel. Now that is certainly true, but hear me out for a second. We don't know what this artifact does, and if it is merely a conduit for communications of some sort, as we continuously see messages being sent through it and even signals being bounced through it, then it's entirely possible that it is not purely in the control of the witness.
If you want my opinion on this, this isn't a fact. I'm just saying this is my personal perspective. I believe that everything is pretty much run by the power of the veil. The witness was made using the power of the veil. The Veiled Woman statues share the same behavior as the veil, same as the egregore, and I believe that more likely than not, what spoke to Eris probably came from the veil. That's my opinion. I think the witness used, because the witness also has that power, so it can use the connection between the ship and the relic and us to give us the vision, and then whatever's inside the veil, or the veil itself, spoke through the relic to Eris. That's my opinion on that.
Unveiling presents death and continual change through growth as an important part of this process, and the witness does not. It believes that all things should reach a single, final perfection as dictated by it, and that things should stay that way forever. It believes that it should be able to dictate the pattern of the universe so that all the universe should be perfect. Its pattern is static, not fluid. Imaru actually sums this up pretty well in The Season of the Witch, when describing the final shape of the hive as the sword logic, which is really similar to the one described in Unveiling by the Winnower, versus the final shape of the witness. Take a listen to this. I think it is actually the most succinct way to explain the difference in philosophy.
final shape, the way we think about it, it's the winner. The one who's so smart or strong that they beat everybody else. The final shape may not be the most interesting or best looking or whatever, but it's the one who makes it to the finish line again and again. It's the best at what it does. The Witness's final shape isn't like that. It's just...
That, I think, that should be a massive... I was aware of this, but it didn't have too much... I don't know, didn't have too much room in my mind, but I think this needs to be a big wake-up call for a lot of people, because if you're aware of the lore, right, what Imaru, and Bife's going to touch on this, of course, but what Imaru is talking about is effectively the final shape interpreted by the Hive, and that based off the sword logic. And again, I'm going to say it, who was, in my opinion, the biggest fanatic of the sword logic? Oryx. Where did Oryx get a lot of his, well, where did all the Hive get their ideology from? The worm gods. Who or what do the worm gods serve? The deep. Oryx spoke with the deep. And if this is all the Witness, it's completely different. And I think that should be a big indication. And I actually think the worst case scenario is that the narrative team just, they changed things and they didn't necessarily think about the contradictions that may occur. When I see Imaru saying this, in my opinion, I interpret this as the narrative team kind of making it a bit clear. This to me indicates, now granted, I know that you have people like the teams who work on the expansions and the teams who work on the seasons, but to me, I do see this as the narrative team kind of revealing their hand, and if they are, if they're the ones, again, pointing out the differences, just like how in the Final Shapes Collector's Edition, how Ido very bluntly pointed out the difference between the Witness and the Winnower in Unveiling, I think this shows intention on behalf of the narrative team. And so, yeah, I think this is kind of a big deal.
Flat. It's static. It's a forced ending, like winning a game by turning it off. Forever. Ugh. It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
So the Hive's conception of the final shape is closer to that noted by the Winnower. The Witness's final shape is not the same. As Imaru said, it's like turning a game off. So these philosophies are different, and on that note, where did the Hive get their ideas of the final shape from anyway?
Bife is cooking, dude.
Hold on to that thought, we'll circle back to it.
Dude.
Spoiler alert, it's found in the Books of Sorrow, and it concerns Oryx. Venextron makes a great point in his video by asking this. If the Witness wrote Unveiling and is the same as the Winnower, why tell us about the supposed final shape and not tell any of its disciples? This is completely at the heart of the truth. The philosophies here don't add up and they don't make sense.
Yeah, boy.
And again, I'm going to retread Venextron's points here too. This could have been simply to corrupt us to the side of darkness, but then other Guardians fell to darkness because they were gifted with dark powers. So why bother sending us a treatise, a manifesto? Why bother sending these specific messages when all it took for the Kentarch 3 to fall in the Black Garden was darkness powers and the divinity? The three of them received darkness powers, and their fall was complete from that moment. No philosophy required, no long book, no need to convince anyone.
And I'm going to add another point here. I've had questions of, if the Witness doesn't care about us and doesn't want us to join it, why give us the powers? And I think that the answer is very clear. It gave Guardians darkness powers to sow discord within the forces of the Last City. And if you look at the Dark Timeline from Elsie, that is what happened. We fell. A lot of Guardians fell, and conflict arose from that. And so when the Black Fleet arrived, we were divided. The whole reason why Elsie came to us in Beyond Light was to make sure that yes, we did get stasis because it's a valuable tool, but that we got it the right way and learned about it responsibly. That is different than in Unveiling, where it's like you are like, what's the word? I can't remember because I'm so excited. You are full of the only thing that matters at all. I truly value you. All these different things. It's completely different because the intention is different. The Witness is giving us powers to make us fall and to sow discord. The Winnower is trying to prove his argument, but at the same time, he does value us, and that is because I think we actually have a link to the Winnower.
The overall point I'm trying to make is that the entire philosophy of the Winnower is stated out there in Unveiling in its lore. Meanwhile, the Witness seems to be really unwilling to communicate its overall vision and philosophy of the final shape.
And do you want to know why? I think the Witness isn't telling people its vision because they wouldn't go along with it. Like, it's a lot harder. So here's the thing, right? The sword logic gives you a chance. It gives you the illusion of victory, where, you know, if you just get good, maybe you'll be the final shape. May the best man win, or whatever. May the best being win. With the Witness, you have no control over your destiny. You will be reshaped into the final version that it likes, and that's it. You are stuck like that forever. I don't think even its disciples would necessarily go along with that, especially Rolk, who has a completely different interpretation than what the Witness wants. Especially Nezarec, whose lore is completely... Nezarec's sin goes completely against that. And so that's why. It's not telling us because it wants to just get it without any real, pushback, any more than it's already getting.
To even its disciples. There are a lot of other notes that could be discussed regarding whether the Witness and the Winnower are the same, but I think these points are the clearest and
I think
most
that's really
salient.
Clean. No, I want to just say I am absolutely loving this video so far, and Bife is doing an incredibly clean job with this. When I wrote my video, it was so difficult. It was so difficult trying to present everything in somewhat of a coherent and understandable way. He is just breezing through this, man. It's masterfully done.
And the Books of Sorrow were written from the perspective of Oryx for the vast majority of them. Only a few verses near the beginning are from different perspectives, such as those of Shiro and Teox in the first few. And sure, maybe there's an occasional Ecumene Corsair here or there, or some other weird line of code, but the vast majority of this is written from Oryx's perspective. So this lore book may be based on knowledge that is false, but we have no reason to doubt what Oryx says and recorded in this book to be sincere when it's from his point of view.
That's such a good point.
Oryx has no reason to lie to us in this book.
Oh my goodness, Bife, that's a good point. Like, Oryx making effectively a Bible and just filling it with lies literally goes against his nature as a documenter and as a recorder of knowledge. That literally goes against that. That's such a good point. I didn't really think about that, dude. That's, yeah.
Perspective that matters, and the information it was all based on at the very beginning might be false, which means the first 20 or so entries miss some context. For example, there is no mention of Rolk whatsoever. But even with that in mind, a vast majority of this story...
I mean, there's a real life reason for that, right? There is, like, like we're kind of treading this line where we're trying to, come up with in-world reasons, but then there's also the real life reasons, right?
And you know how the Witness actually addresses one of its true disciples, Callus? It addresses Callus like this.
And I'm not going to go too into this, but this is one of the reasons why I've always been sus about Presage. And I have no true evidence to back this up. I'm not going to get into it, but let me just propose a theory, okay? A little early tidbit. What if Callus accidentally Callus is trying to contact the Witness, instead, with all of his ego and his brashness, taps into something and he goes way beyond like his depth. He goes way out of his league, and that is why everything went to crap with the Glycon. Because, yeah, no. And then he leaves the Glycon, and then the witness is like, "Hey, no, dude, you want to speak to me? Come over here. We'll talk there." And then the Callus is like, "Okay, cool." So Presage has always been in my mind, and maybe I'll make a video on that, but I'm still thinking about it. But yeah, no, this is easily like, yeah.
Now, there is something else worth talking about here, and that's the control of the Taken themselves, as well as the power of taking that was learned by Oryx.
No shot. No way he's gonna go into this. No way he's gonna go into this, dude.
To this day, there is very little that we know about the actual process here, but the one snippet of confirmed lore that we do actually get, as best I know, comes out of this moment in one of the Taken King Vidocs. Take a listen to this.
Oryx is here, and he's brought with him an evil army of corrupted Taken. Combatants that have been ripped out of our dimension and sent back with new powers and new abilities.
Yep.
We know that Oryx learned the power to commune with the deep from Akka, and that he inscribed it on the Tablets of Ruin. Those tablets were also coveted by Xivu Arath and Savathun because they contained the knowledge of the power to take. This is further expanded upon in the Witch Queen campaign, when we actually recover a Tablet of Ruin from the Temple of the Navigator, and have its power described to us by Savathun in the Altar of Reflection.
I will never be the Taken Queen. I refuse to play second fiddle to my brother Oryx. When Oryx carved the Tablets of Ruin, he described the ability to create the Taken. But Oryx's chisel was affected by viral power from the deep. I studied its vermicular path. I read between the lines. The tablets hide a riddle. The answer to this riddle is something greater than the power to take. It is the power of the Witness to move worlds from one reality to another.
So at first, this actually sounds like it's a bit of a dead end, because it does sound here like, no, the power to take did come from the Witness instead. This power to take is the power to move world, and it's also a power that the Witness has. This also levels with what Marasov has said back in the Season of the Lost about Oryx on this matter, and in particular,
So I just had a counterpoint to this. I know he's going to touch on this maybe, but let's just do some critical thinking, okay? Let's say, now I disagree that the Witness is the master of the Taken. But let's just say that, oh, to create the Taken, it's the power of the Witness, moving worlds from one dimension to another. Okay. First question, what dimension, what other reality is this that they're going to? Only answer is the deep. Okay, so where's the deep? Well, what is the Witness inherently connected to? The veil. Okay, cool. Well, Oryx spoke to something inside the deep. So there's a character inside the deep. The Witness is inside the deep. So just from that alone, you have a bit of an interesting thing happening where even if the Witness has the power to take, the source of that power is still from the deep. The Taken are being actually made inside this other dimension. We've never heard of the Witness going into that dimension. At the same time, we do have a character who is called the Deep, because the Deep is a person and a place, or at least an entity and a place.
Oryx's master.
I have already learned much by observation. The Taken pursued her here. Taken she once controlled. Taken that now serve a new master. Or, if Savathun is to be believed, their original master. Not her brother, Oryx.
Sorry, I know I'm pausing again. I actually think it's also interesting that in the final shape, they have updated the Taken to have like resonance eyes, which to me indicates that they are serving the Witness directly. So there's you know, if when she says the original master, that they're serving their original master, does that mean that they actually are serving the witness or something else?
Most importantly of all, though, I think there is the repeated use of the single word majestic. It's mentioned in the Books of Sorrow, where Oryx communicates with the Deep itself, which is presumptively the Winnower, but it's also repeated in Unveiling, where the entry literally called The Final Shape sees the Winnower describing the patterns emerging from the universe as it began and originally was as majestic. Note that these patterns emerged thanks to the sword logic, and that continuous assertion that the strong will survive over the weak. This
I don't think he's going to mention it, so I'll just say that the Majestic line also appears in the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition lore.
This is the rule that gives rise to the pattern, which is ultimately what's being called majestic by the Winnower. In the Books of Sorrow, the entity describes itself as majestic as well, near the end of that entry where it addresses Oryx. Where else can this term be found where it's of relevance, though? Well, again, I have to point to the good work of Venextron here, who put me on the path of the next bit to really find out about. The term majestic comes up in one other place of extreme relevance here, and I think that that is the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition lorebook. This is Venextron's finding. Entry 22. It is lonely. It is impossibly, inexpressibly sad, beyond the capacity of the human limbic system to experience. But it is content in its loneliness, and in its beautiful sadness. It is the light of the first sunrise after your lover leaves forever.
Oh my goodness, Bife. No, I just realized. That also ties in with why the Winnower sees value in us. Because if we are, you know... So the Winnower says that it is majestic, and that it is the final shape. Which it also says is majestic. And it says we are majestic, and that we are full of the only thing that matters at all. We are potentially the answer to this. Dude.
There is an influence there, an entity that drives this connection, I am certain of it. And I think it is unlikely that it is the Witness, because again, the Witness and the Winnower are philosophically different, and the idea of samsara being as closed as a lock is about as clear as all of that gets. This pattern is far too similar to what we know of the Winnower to be that of the...
I'm just gonna say, if Unveiling is like completely retconned, this is going to be really awkward, because if anything, Bife's video is making it really clear that the continuity is so busted, man. It's so busted. Oof.
The Witness in my mind. So we have the notes from Oryx in the Books of Sorrow, and we have the record of Commander Quang Xuan in the K1 project, and all of this links back to that similar phrase in Unveiling. But again, a question looms over Unveiling, which is, how true is it really? Well, I want to examine that a little closer for our next moment here, because I think there is a critical part of the mythos as stated of the Gardener and the Winnower, which is actually true. And that's the note about what happened in the garden before time.
Oh, dang,
again,
he's going into it.
A lot of credit here goes to Venextron. There is a moment within his video where I audibly gasped because he said that someone's mind was going to be blown, and I fully acknowledge that when I first watched it, yeah, that was me.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I remember I had a comment, somebody saying like, "What, you're being so you know, whatever, saying that, like, why are you, you know?" And I'm saying, well, the reason why I put that in was because that's how I felt, you know. But that's really funny, dude. I love that, man.
I didn't know this. He taught me something which has been in front of my eyes for 5 years. This book also, again, it's Unveiling. It comes from a slanted perspective that's trying to convince us of a philosophical idea, but let's focus on the events that it talks about for a second here, because I believe that at least one of these events can verifiably be traced to be true. So if we're looking for truth in this book, what question are we looking to focus on? Well, the question is this: was the garden real? And the answer to that appears to quite definitively be yes.
Let's go, dude. Let's go, man. Yes.
The parent of the Tree of Silver Wings that we see here on Io was felled in the Black Garden.
Yep.
Which would mean that the Black Garden is the garden before time, where the Winnower and the Gardener existed. But hold on a second. If this was truly the case, and if the Tree of Silver Wings was once in the garden, there'd need to be some proof of it left, right?
Surely.
Because, I mean, after all, when the Gardener and the Winnower fought, they brought down the Tree of Silver Wings and left its stump to burn within the meadows.
Yeah.
Just its stump. That's all that was left. So, can we find the remains of the Tree of Silver Wings in the Black Garden? Can we find this stump?
I don't know.
And as it happens, yes,
Oh.
we can. You've been looking at the location the whole time.
Indeed.
That distant mesa, that foundation of rock at the center of the garden, that's where we go at the end of the Garden of Salvation raid. And when you've taken a moment to ascend, before you reach the final boss area, you can see these hills covered in radiolarian waterfalls. But hold on for just a second, because if you look to the left, to the edge of those hills, you see that they're not made of dirt or stone. That right there on the left-hand side is a root. And if you examine it closer, you'll notice the texture is not earth or dirt or stone, it's wood. The Traveler might not necessarily be just the Traveler. If we're to look at the existence of the Winnower...
Dude, is he going to do what I think he's going to do? Oh my goodness. I know that like I've rambled and sometimes the words don't come out right. I am literally so excited. At some points, I've been like shaking, dude. Like, this is amazing. This is incredible. Cook, Bife, cook, do it. Do it.
And again, let's look at the figure who's saying all of this one more time. Not only does she appear to be feminine in form, much as was the Gardener described in Unveiling, but her garb and clothing, as Venextron points out, potentially give us a little bit of a matching story to what's happened to the Gardener since. The shroud that she is wearing is black, almost as though she's gone through a great degree of mourning, and her hair is prematurely grey, which Venextron attributes to the idea that she has stressed and has lost the colour in her hair. And if this does fit with the Gardener and the Traveller, then, well, it makes sense considering what they've endured. She has watched countless civilizations fall and has watched her creations take after their father in the manner of choosing violence.
You know, it's interesting that he says that because when I mentioned that, I was mainly talking about the collapse. You know? That's a completely different perspective than I had considered. The black clothing representing mourning and the hair color representing stress, to me, I mainly attributed that to the collapse. But I can see what he's saying, and I think that's definitely a valid way of looking at it, yeah. Honestly, I think both can be true, you know?
And finally, I can't not point this out. Take a listen to this moment in the trailer for the final shape.
Take this power, Guardian. Be brave in dark places, for we are the light of hope.
I'm going to update my position on this, and I'm going to say I actually do not believe that's the Gardener. But we'll see. I do not think this is the Gardener, and I personally see getting kind of excited and seeing this as the Gardener. This may be bait. This might be bait. So it's worth just waiting and seeing. If that was the Gardener, though, dude, that's Bungie really like. It's like, yeah, we know you have no idea what this is. You're not ready for this. We can literally have the character talk, and you have no idea. But we'll see.
According to the Unveiling lore, the Gardener requested that a new lore should be added into the flower game, a lore that allowed for a greater degree of complexity in this game of flowers, and in doing so, they would allow a new shape other than the one that had continuously created itself to persist. I don't know about you, but I think that sounds a lot like the idea of transcendence itself, something built on complexity, something that exists within the game but also defies it to.
He's right. I think he's right. You know, at first when he said that we are her answer, I was going to disagree because, like, listen, dude, we do a lot of killing, okay? We do a lot of killing. It's not always for the most noble reasons, okay? Listen, I don't make the rules. If you are a character and I find out that you have the capability to turn into a gun, you're going to get turned into a gun. It is what it is. I'm sorry. But I think what the concept is that Bife is mentioning is that we are a combination of light and dark. We have the umbral centers, and we are risen as guardians. We are a warrior who doesn't attack, but who defends. And as a pattern, we would effectively be the pattern who protects the peaceful ones from the malevolent and violent ones. We are the shepherds, effectively. And again, you combine both the willingness to fight, but the refrain and the self-control and the desire to protect and preserve. It's a combination of the two logics. That is what we are. And yeah, that could be what Bife's referring to. And if that is the case, whether it is or isn't, like, I think that works.
I've spoken about a lot of stuff here, and a lot of it contains some really tantalizing and conclusive ideas to do with the lore, and there's lots of points where I have discussed the idea of the Winnower as though it is an absolute. And I need you all to take a step back and acknowledge that we don't have enough proof of that. Because, ultimately, we don't know any of the answers to these questions. We have ideas of the answers, we have ideas of what might be the case, but we don't know truly what's going on.
I'm going to disagree with this. It's not that we have enough evidence to say that this is the case. I think we have enough evidence to say that this was the case. That is the important detail. I cannot tell you for a fact that just because I read this lore, that this is what's going to happen in the final shape. But I believe I can tell you that from everything I've gathered in the lore, that this may have been the original vision at one point in time. That's the difference. So really, either it did exist and it was retconned, or they're still going with it.
And I want everybody to remove all expectations of any story beats from their minds when it comes to the final shape.
I actually think that this is such a shame, because Bife has presented all of this evidence, which in my opinion presents an intentional and very decisive direction and vision, and yet is saying don't expect anything in the final shape. And I think that this just shows that we're dealing with a story that doesn't have the clearest of continuity, and that things can get thrown out the window, and that things can flip-flop. And I think that's a shame. I do. And the reason why is because the reason why Bife is showing this to all of you, and the reason why I have been showing this to all of you, is because we value what is in the game. We value the lore. When there's a lore book, we read that, we value that, and we consider it as something with weight to it. But if you are in an environment where things are constantly being retconned, and there's flip-flopping, and oh, maybe we'll go in this direction, and maybe we won't, what that means is that you just won't value anything. Because why would you set yourself up for disappointment? Why would you care about any of the lore if none of it or all of it may actually end up being relevant? And this isn't even one lore book, right? You want to take one lore book and say, oh, well, you know, it was just propaganda or whatever. This is Bife going across both games and gathering information that very clearly is linked to each other. If all of that can get flip-flopped, then, you know, it's honestly a shame. And so, as much as I advocate waiting for the final shape and not, you know, being like, oh, well, Ven said this was going to happen, I think I mean, it's up to you, but I am going into the final shape, and if we get some random story, you know, I will say, okay, in that case, I am of the opinion that they retconned the original vision. That is my opinion. And I'm going to be honest with you, Bife has presented this in such a clean way that it just, you know, like I knew most of this information. There was actually some things that I didn't know. But no, I think if all of this just gets thrown out the window, man, and I even said it earlier, it really makes the continuity just look so botched. But no, I think it's a shame. Don't expect anything in the final shape, sure, but I think it's a shame.
No, seriously, get rid of them. I know.
And here is, and I don't care what, do not let anybody convince you of otherwise. Stand your ground on this. You have the right to be disappointed. You have the right to not agree with the direction the story goes. Are you a game developer? No. Are you a professional writer? No. But you have the right to express whether or not you enjoyed something. If the final shape comes out, and you absolutely hate the direction the story goes, you have the right to say, well, I didn't really enjoy that. Now, you be respectful. You present yourself in a respectful and a polite manner. But you have the right to say what you feel.
It's been a long 10-year journey in this first saga. And I know everybody sits there and says, it's over, it's over. It's not. I think we can all quite definitively say that now. I will still be here. I will still be making the same kind of content that I do. Even if we have another Lightfall situation, if I've learned anything from the past 12 months, it's that Destiny is unbelievably resilient, and that this is a universe with characters that I love. Also, I wish Bungie's devs would be treated properly. So, let's do what the
Big true. I couldn't agree with you more, dude.
Audacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.
Okay. I actually don't have that many closing thoughts on this. I think that it was a... Oh, my microphone. I think that this is the best Bife video that I've ever watched. Not just because I'm in it, but the formatting, his voiceovers, all of it, just like it's spectacular. And I agree with him on pretty much everything. I do. And if anything, some of the additional things that he's added strengthen my opinions. And yeah, the only thing that I will say is that what makes a good story? And the truth is that a good story is one that makes you feel immersed in the world and that makes you feel. It makes you feel emotions. And for everyone, all of us have a different requirement list of what will do that. I will tell you what mine is in the case of Destiny, because this is a very long saga and it's one that means a lot to me. I see the lore and all of that as history, and it is the foundation that connects the world and holds it in place. And in my opinion, retcons are the breaking of those foundations and adding in a replacement. Sometimes, if you have a building and there's like a faulty beam or a faulty whatever, or if you have a wooden house or a wooden ship and it's rotting, taking it out and replacing it can honestly improve the thing as a whole. But sometimes it's not necessary. And, you know, there's the whole Ship of Theseus idea, which is, if you have a ship, after how many planks that are replaced, when does it stop being the ship it used to be? You know? And if the Gardener and the Winnower are completely retconned, or if the Witness is the Winnower, to me, I see this as the history and the structure of this world very damaged. You know, I understand that the writers should do their own thing and have the right to that, but it should never come at the cost of the quality of that world. And so I would say that for me personally, even if the Final Shape story is presented in a very clean, very emotional and exceptional way, the characters shown do amazing things and it's great. If we don't get this payoff, for me personally, I will say the expansion was amazing, but the story did disappoint me. For many of you, that might not be the case. Because what matters to you is a story that, again, makes you feel and that immerses you. And you may not need a consistent continuity to achieve that. And that's fine. So, as much as I will feel a certain way, depending on how things go, I don't have the right or the authority to state that as the objective authority, like that is how it is. So in that sense, I am in agreement with Bife on what he says. But I just think that the wording of that, the narrative team should be allowed to write their own story. I say yes, but within reason. I think that's fair. The last thing that I want to say, and if you've watched to the end, I really appreciate you for doing that. Thank you. Is that Bife making this video means a lot to me. You may have watched his video, and because it's Bife, you accept his words, and you know that he's a knowledgeable guy. He understands the lore, and you value what he says, and that's great. When I made my video, as much as there were people who were excited and enthusiastic, and who even just at the very least appreciated that I took the time to make that video, there were many people who were rude. Many people who were aggressive. People who name callers. All of that. And the reason why I'm saying this isn't to have a boo-hoo, but if this is going to get a lot of views, then to the lore community as a whole, I want to say this. Be respectful to each other. Disagree politely. Not just because it's the right thing to do when treating another human being, but because at the end of the day, we are looking for answers and we desire the truth. And the most surefire way of discovering that truth is when multiple perspectives come together and they share their ideas. But when there's an environment and new theories are met with hostility, it discourages others from sharing what they have, and it limits and narrows the vision, and ultimately lowers the chances of, again, the correct interpretation being achieved. So if this video gets a lot of views and you watched all the way to the end, just in the future, if you are sharing your thoughts and your theories, and somebody says something that you disagree with, just be polite about it, you know? Also, if you want a place where you can do that, my community is more than open to you. My community has kind of just formed itself. I didn't really go about doing it too much, but if you join my Discord server, it's full of guys that are sharing their theories and coming up with different things, and it's really great. And so if you've been looking for a place where you can do that and you're not going to get attacked, that's the place to go. But anyway, this video was amazing, and thank you, Bife, for making it, and thank you for mentioning me. I'm really touched by it, dude. And if you're somebody who watched this video, again, thank you. Yeah. Till next time, take care, my friends. Bye-bye.